everyone, I'm Kevin, otherwise known as Forum BX257, here to bring you another 1980s G.I. Joe toy review. And today I'll be doing a double review. I'll be doing Zartan's siblings, the 1986 Zandar and Zarana. Now I'll start with Zandar. A little background information on Zandar. He first appears in the original Marvel comic run in issue 51. And he also appears in the very first part of the 1986 season opener, the five-parter Arise Serpentor Arise. Zandar is, for the most part, I would say Zandar is a very underused character. He doesn't have the same use of disguises, at least in the cartoon, that Zartan and Zarana have. Instead, he really relies on stealth, on sneaking up on people, and as such, he really does have an aura of being a very forgettable character, but at least forgettable on purpose. One interesting thing you'll probably note is that Zandar has orange hair, at least in this card art, and in the toy. However, in the comic books, Zandar had pink hair which matched his sister's, which was obviously incorrect. Another interesting thing you might note is that the the card art actually states that the figure changes color in the sunlight. And that's something that was never explored in the cartoons or in the comics. As a matter of fact, it seemed Zandar and Zarana both did not have that same allergic reaction to sunlight. Zarana, on the other hand, she makes her first appearance one issue before her brother in issue 50. But she also appears in the very first part of Arise Serpentor Arise along with Zandar. She is obviously the most popular of the two, as she is quite developed as a character. Again, she changes color in the sunlight, but the cartoon never shows her as being allergic to the sunlight, or even changing color for that matter. She uses disguises just like Zartan does, but in the comic books, Zartan uses that sort of holographic instant change type of thing, whereas Zarana, in both the cartoon and the comic books, used more traditional slip-on disguises. In the cartoon, also, she had a sort of a illicit romance with Mainframe. You'll also notice that I have two Zarana cards, and that's because there was actually a variant, and I wound up picking up each figure with a card. One interesting thing I'd like to note before I get onto the toys is Zarana's name is actually a real Eastern Indian name. Zarana actually means water stream in Indian, and I think that's very interesting. Actually very cute when you think about it. Zandar, on the other hand, when I did a Google search on his name, I actually came up with a board game by Milton Bradley, a sort of electronic fortune-telling board game called Ask Zandar, which, as I know that Milton Bradley is actually owned by Hasbro, I figure that's a very strange way to maintain the copyright on his particular name. Again, I'm going to start with Zandar. Now, I'm going to try not to say anything particularly negative about the figure, but let's face it, he's a shirtless dude with gray pants. And as such, I know what they're trying to do here. They're trying to sculpt a continuation of the sort of Dreadnought biker gang, post-apocalyptic Mad Max type of gear. But on Zandar, it doesn't quite work because of the colors that they've chosen. This bright blue and the pink bandana. I mean, that really needed something a bit darker, or at least more subdued. You'll notice that his knee pads And probably his belt buckle would have been gold. I'm pretty sure that a lot of this has rubbed off. It is, of course, made of the Hasbro's famous metallic paint, which rubs off fairly easily. I haven't decided to restore that because, well, being worn off, at least it looks kind of good. You'll notice that there's also a little gold paint on his earrings. He has earrings on both ears. And actually, there is something to that, but I'll get to that a bit later. Zandar came with a barbed projectile weapon with scope, which is a fancy way of saying harpoon gun. And he came with a grenade-adorned quiver, which is a fancy way of saying backpack with arrows. Now, at least with this, sure, it looks a bit funny, but there is a definite excuse for this, because at least arrows, or bolts in this case, have more mass than a bullet. And of course, arrows are generally shot out of rifles that are silenced. So there's that for his covert needs. When Zarana was first released, she looked like this. And for some strange reason, they went and changed her face. Now, I don't really see what's particularly wrong with her face, as the face sculpt as it is. Admittedly, it doesn't really have the sort of aggressive look, or even a very young look. She looks kind of old but I wouldn't say that she's ugly. But very early in the run, they switched out her face with this one. And this one looks, well, yes, aggressive, kind of scrunched in and sour looking, and it certainly, at least it sort of matches the personality that she has. Very, I guess, sort of mean. It's very odd to me that they would change the face because, well, let's face it, her head is actually a two-piece part. Not only does she have the header itself, but this sort of French bun on the top is a separate piece. And it's sculpted differently as well. So that's a lot of tooling just to change the face. And that's actually rather unfortunate, because this actually wound up being very, very hard to get. It was the first run, and quite frankly, they changed it almost soon afterwards. And that's, like I said, that's a shame, because she has the two earrings. In fact, this particular variant is known as Zarana with earrings. And she would have matched her brother with them. But when they sculpted the new one, they left off the earrings, so now brother and sister no longer match. Zarana is, of course, the more popular of the two, and sure, she has the same kind of crazy getup that Zandar has, which I sort of ragged on before, but you kind of expect that from Zarana, you know, the big pink blouse and sort of all ripped up. It works for her in a way that strangely does not work for Zandar. She comes with a razor-honed spur weapon, and again, this sort of carries over that strange dreadnought predilection for using, extreme tools as her weapons. Well, this is a very odd choice for Zarana, and I'm not quite sure what they were going for with this. And of course, she also comes with a backpack, which has this very odd thing sticking out, and I'm not quite sure what this is supposed to be. The Zandar and Zarana figures share the 1984 Zartan's ability to change color in the sunlight. Unfortunately, they're also constructed like Zartan, in that, just like many O-ring figures, the chest is a two-piece bit held together by a screw. But in their case, the chest part is actually I believe, sonically welded together, or has some light bit of glue together. So taking it apart is actually a lot more difficult than just removing the screw by itself. There are a few videos on the internet dealing with taking them apart, and I'll probably put them, I'll list those ones in the description. The color change actually does work on all the figures, less so for Zandar for some reason, but they all turn a bluish gray just like Zartan. It just takes about a little over 30 seconds, so you'll have to be patient. Well, that's all the time I have right now. Please check out my Facebook page for more information and behind-the-scenes photos for these reviews. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for next time to see another 1980s G.I. Joe toy review. See you then.